Wouter, EMAEL and Peter Dulen, these are two of our star Agile coaches working at the customer sites, and they will bring you today an introduction in SAFE. Wouter.
Hello. Thanks for the pressure, Peter. Welcome, everyone. So my name is Wouter, and together with my colleague Peter, we will talk about SAFE, the Scaled Agile Framework for Lean Enterprises. Those of you that already saw the big picture, and it really is a big picture, the Scaled Agile Framework, you've seen that there is already a lot of things on that picture. So to discuss all of those items in one session would be too much. So we decided to focus on the essentials, and there is a configuration in SAFE which is called Essential SAFE. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about today. Now, before we're going to explain how it all works, let's journey back in time. Maybe not this far, but let's journey back to around 2000, 2001, where a set of like-minded souls who had done projects in the 90s and saw that doing projects was very difficult at some points. Projects took a long time, they hardly delivered value, sometimes they were even stopped in the middle because some of the competitors already delivered the thing that we were developing. And so they thought, okay, there has to be a better way of working in projects, of delivering value for our customers. So they came together, and they didn't conclude on a new framework or a new way of doing it, but they created what is currently known as the Agile Manifesto, which is a set of values and principles that underpin a new style of how we can do projects, a new way of looking at delivering value and how we can respond to change. Agility, like Bob already said in the introduction, is very important this day and age. So through the years, people took up new agile ways of working, Scrum, Kanban. There were a lot of different frameworks there. But scaling it in a larger environment was actually problematic. It works well in smaller teams, but if you go to larger companies, they have bigger IT systems or a bigger IT landscape, a more complex IT landscape, and so we need more people to work on those systems. So the teams alone is not enough to deliver that value. And so Dean Leffingwell, who is the creator of the SAFE framework, he was one of the people that tried to introduce that new way of working in those bigger organizations. And he actually found that indeed it's a struggle to implement big systems in those organizations. And on top of that, through the years, we had things like emerging new technologies that we have to implement in our existing IT landscape, which is already complex. We have new competitors who often don't have that legacy in their systems, who can respond a lot quicker, and we need to be able to compete with them. So that's one of the reasons why the Scaled Agile Framework was used. And the conclusion is that more and more the ability of being agile in a larger enterprise, it's no longer an option, it's an imperative. Through the years, we've seen that a lot of companies who once were at the top of their segment, who were market leaders, no longer exist or have a hard time coping with changed realities. Think of Kodak. Kodak was once a very successful company making picture cameras. Today, it hardly even exists, or at least they don't make cameras anymore. So it's critical also as a company that we are able to respond to the market changes and to technology changes in a very agile way. And so the conclusion of Dean is we need our enterprises, our companies, to be lean. So what does that mean? We need to be able to embrace all of the challenges that are presented to us as a digital company, and we need to make sure that we can build competitive systems in that way. And in the shortest sustainable lead time, so not once, but we have to be able to continuously deliver value to our customers, and we need to make sure that we can keep up that pace. So that's very important, and that's something where the SAFe framework can help you to do that. Peter. Oh.
When I first encountered the SAFe framework, it was through this picture. And I found this quite impressive and a bit scary at the same time. I had heard the feedback from SAFe already. It's very prescriptive, it's dominating, it's not very flexible, you can't move around in it too much. And this model or this picture seemed to confirm that fear. There's a lot of information on that picture, there's a lot of arrows, there's a lot of boxes. Fortunately, otherwise I wouldn't be standing here, that's not the case. Look at SAFe as a very big toolbox, a box of practices, techniques, ideas you can use to drive your company forward or your product. I like to compare it with way back when I was younger. I had a friend who he rebuilt the old Volkswagens, and his garage was his atelier, and he had a wide bunch of tools. And whatever he wanted to do on his Volkswagen, he would find the tool that he needed to do it. And if it was not in his shed, he would either go and look somewhere else or go borrow it from someone who had the tool available. And that, in essence, is what SAFe is. And they say the same. It is a knowledge base of things that the people trying to implement or helping to implement SAFe have done, tried, practiced, evaluated themselves, and we put that available to everyone else. This is our experience that you can dig into and hopefully give you some inspiration on how you can do that in your own project. It does not mean that this is an out-of-the-box model, not at all. You cannot take your company structure, paste SAFe over it and say, now we're good to go. Now we know what to do. That is not what the model is. The model revolves around core values and principles. Like I said, there's a lot of techniques in there. But you don't know if a technique is going to bring you value, if it's going to help you, how to apply it. So with that you can play. What SAFe says is that whatever you do, keep these values and principles in mind. And there are 4 core values and 9 principles, of which nothing is shockingly new. Like they say in the definition, this comes from practice in other models, things we've tried out. If you look at the values, alignment, built-in quality, transparency, program execution, the last one meaning you actually have to do things if you want to evaluate them. You don't spend years trying to build the perfect way of working and then try doing it. Even if there is no technique in the box to fit that into your organization, does not mean you do not need these core values. We had a very big team, very big Scrum team, of 26 people once. Now 26 is something that regular Agile coaches run away from. So it should be 6 to 8, then it's manageable. But these people were 26. And they said, if we want to keep something, it is we want to stay as a group. Because we are the team, we want to build this product, and we want to stay together. That raises a number of issues on alignment and transparency. What kind of work are we going to give those people? How do we make sure that they don't get in the way of each other? How do we stimulate communication between what they're working on? And for example, this was the first time where I experimented with feature teams. Means you have a group of 26 people which formed loosely coupled mini teams per feature that you want to deliver. And once that was delivered, it decomposed again and formed into a different feature team. Meaning that you delivered value, but you kept on working with different people depending on the skills needed to build that feature. So you still had the big team feeling, but feature made it easier to align who was going to do what and more transparent on, are we going in the right way? That's what I mean with core values. This is what you keep at heart. It's the same for the principles. There's a lot on this board, so I'll leave you a couple of seconds because your natural inclination is to read all this text and not focus on me anymore, which is fine. Don't worry about that. Also in the principles, there is nothing shockingly new. The idea is keep them in the back of your head when you try to apply something new. Assume variability, preserve options basically means that the very big upfront design that some companies are still used to with the big analysis document, it's not always working. Sometimes market and clients change so fast that whatever you think now is not valid anymore in 2 months, let alone 6 months or a year. So we want to find a way where you can get feedback faster. You want to have options open. That's where things come into mind like model-based design or set-based design. Games industry is very good at that. If you take companies like King or Supercell, they have prototyping teams, which is basically saying, I do not know the perfect solution now, but I'm going to try out a lot of things, get very early customer feedback, and on the things where we feel this is contributing to the value we want to achieve, on those options we continue to build. And all the others we discard. There has been some effort into that and some money, but still not enough to merit continuing it. It's easy to let it go. That's what we mean with stick to core values and principles. SAFe does not explain all these things to you, like all the detailed things you have to do. It explains your mindset. This is what you have to think about. Like Wouter was saying, this is a definition. I've highlighted one extra word in that, and that is sustainable. And this was something I learned in a games company itself. Getting a release out is not the hardest job. Actually, it's the easiest part of your cycle. It's knowing what's going to happen after your release. That is going to be key. Does any of you play Candy Crush? Or know anyone who plays Candy Crush? The match 3 game? So it's a match 3 game on mobile. It's very easy to make, and King has about 320 active million users per day, per month. That's a lot. As I say, getting a release out is not hard. There were a lot of companies simply cloning the game, pushing it to the market, and they failed. They failed because releasing is not important, but knowing that your users want to have content updates within 2 weeks. If you then bust your team into building the release, and after that they're completely burned out, they go on vacation, they quit and everything, you cannot have that in a sustainable way. People quit, you do not have your release, and people stop playing. King knows that if there's no content update in 2 weeks, there are, every day they lose hundreds of thousands of players. And that's not what you want. If I go back one slide, apply systems thinking, that is what this means. Don't think just about your product and your release, put it in a very big picture and know where you want to go with it. What is going to happen afterward? Make it sustainable so people can keep on going.
Okay, so how does it work? This is the picture of an essential safe, which is basically the foundation, which is the thing that you start with. If you build a house, you first put in your foundation and then you build on top of that. In SAFe, it's a bit the same. You start with the essential safe configuration, and once that's up and running, you can add other things. So the essentials are at the bottom. You see that there is the team. The team is still the lowest level, which contains the people that are working like a regular Agile team. But on top of that, they put what they call a program layer, which is an additional layer that provides some more guidance, but we will come back to that later. So an agile team in SAFe works based on Scrum and Kanban. Scrum, probably a lot of you already know this, we work from a backlog which is owned by our product owner, a business representative, who prioritizes the things that we're going to do, the things that we believe or hope are going to bring value to our customers. Something that Royko will also be talking about later today. What happens is our development team picks stories or items from that backlog and turns them into our new product, our new feature that we implement into our product. Our Scrum Master, he's our coach. He makes sure that our team works according to Agile principles. He tries to improve the process, the way we are working. Now, they also use Kanban, and Kanban is a way to improve our flow, because we have time boxes in Scrum, we deliver something, but we also want to make sure that that flow keeps on going. We want to keep delivering new things every time box, time and again. And Kanban is a way of visualizing the flow through our development process. So by doing this, you can see where we are with our different new features, different new items that we are developing. And we can define work in progress limits. Work in progress limits will help us to make sure that we stop starting things and start finishing things. If we have bottlenecks, we will see on our board, and we can actively try to finish the things that are ongoing before we start new things that we might not even be able to finish before our sprint or iteration is finished. So flow is a very key concept also in SAFe. Now, one of the very important things, if you want to keep flow, if you want to have flow, is built-in quality. Also one of the core values, like Peter already mentioned. You can't have real flow without delivering products of quality. If you deliver crap to the next person in line, then you will get that back, and that stops the flow of continuing through your process. So flow is very important, quality is very important. Now, as Peter already mentioned, SAFe doesn't really say which kind of techniques you have to use, but generally there are a number of agile engineering techniques who have been developed throughout the years that can help you deliver better quality. Things like test-driven development, behavior-driven development, they will make sure, or they will try to make sure that your quality level gets higher. On the other hand, we also need to make sure that whatever we deliver is something that our clients want, because we can deliver new things rapidly, with a high quality, but if our customers don't want it, then actually there is no value. So things like intentional architecture, lean UX, also some things that Royko will talk about, those are important to make sure that we develop the things that matter. So, as I mentioned before, a team in a larger context is not enough. We can have several teams working on a big product, a big system, but the teams alone, they're not enough. We need something additionally. And that's where SAFe introduces the program layer. And in the program layer, we have the concept of a team of agile teams, or the so-called agile release train, which is a virtual organization, let's call it, where we group teams together that work on a common backlog that they translate into their own backlog, and they plan together, they demo together, they release together, they learn together, they do everything together. So they work in Scrum, in Kanban, they have a cadence. Looking at this picture, it doesn't show immediately, but it's a lot like Scrum. There are different roles, which we will explain in a minute, but there is also the concept of planning. There is a concept of an iteration, but in SAFe it's called a program increment. This is your iteration that comes back time and again. And at the end, we also have retrospectives. We also have demos to our end clients. And in the meantime, we integrate all of the things that we deliver as a team of teams. So everything we do is together. So one thing that ensures is that we have a cadence. And cadence makes sure that we get predictable, even with our team of teams. We can plan things that are events, like Peter will introduce in a minute. Those events can be planned just like we plan our planning in Scrum in the beginning of the sprint, our demo at the end, a retrospective at the end. It's the same in the Scaled Agile framework. The thing that comes on top, and which is very important, is alignment. Through this, the fact that we plan together, we integrate together, we do everything together, we make sure that our teams are aligned on what we are developing, both on plans, but also on priorities. If one team is working on feature A and needs the other team to work on a similar feature, but they're working on something else, then in the end we will not deliver anything. So it's important that they are in sync. That's something that SAFe introduces through our layer. So synchronization is key. Like Peter will explain in a minute, it's the essence of the Scaled Agile framework. Now I'm a bit lost. Okay. Now, just like in the Scrum team, we also have different roles, because the guidance, it doesn't come from itself. There need to be people that take up or that ensure that those different teams work together. So we have our release train engineer, which is basically our Scrum Master of Scrum Masters. So he has the same role as a Scrum Master, meaning coaching the team in Agile principles, solving impediments, but then on a train level, not on the team level. Our product management, our business representatives, they determine the things that we are going to build as a team of teams for our system. What kind of features are we going to do next in the next product increment? Of course, if we have different teams working together, they also need to be aligned on things like architecture. If different teams are envisioning a different architecture, in the end you will get into trouble. So our system architect or system engineer, he will provide the guidelines to make sure that we are aligned on architectural level. In the end, when we deliver something, we need to be able to integrate all of that stuff. So we have what's called a system team, which is the enabler to make sure that all of the different teams can integrate the different part solutions that are created. They will manage tools like Jenkins or Bamboo or things that are able to automate, integrate, to bring everything together at the end and make sure that we have a finished product increment to show to our stakeholders. And of course, our business owners, they make sure that there is a vision which is shared and known by all of the different teams. Because if the teams don't know what the vision is, then they don't know what they're working towards. So vision and guidance is ensured by these roles, which are on the program level, on the release train level, to make sure that the different teams that are making the solutions can actually build the best possible product that they can deliver. Peter.
Who knows their company vision by heart? My next question would be, who has actively used their company vision in the past 3 months? It is extremely important. So what I was saying, synchronization is important. Many small agiles do not necessarily make a big agile. When you have to guide 10 agile teams, well, that's still fine. 40 agile teams, that is quite a challenge. 40 agile teams working together with 20 non-agile teams, that's a hell of a job. And you need something to steer that forward. So in the SAFe model, there are a number of ceremonies that help you doing that help you with how do I use this to synchronize this whole group into an art and a release train that moves forward. The first one is planning. If you're familiar with SAFe PI, Program Increment Planning, simply meaning what are we going to deliver next. This is a very big event where you involve and invite everyone of your product to come and join you for a couple of days to decide just that. And you always start with the vision. What are we solving? If you went to Goiko's workshop before lunch, are we solving the right thing? How are we approaching that? How have we done in the past? And where are we going next? Why do we say to involve everyone? Because your business is there, your stakeholders, the people who are going to make it, people from the support center. Everyone has a voice in your product, basically is there, meaning that if there is any decision required, you can make it there as well. Which is a lot faster than putting everything down on paper or in mail, sending it to a bunch of people, having to wait for replies, then adjusting that mail again and send it back with your comments. It's going to cost weeks that 40 Agile teams are developing something for your product, which they don't know if it's good enough. That's why we say, spend some time on your planning. All your noses are in the right direction, you have your vision, you have your planning, and mostly everyone agrees on it. Because you're all on the same event. Meaning that if something happens, the question would be, how does that relate to the information from the planning? And even more importantly, if that changes the planning, you know you have to communicate that to everyone, otherwise people get lost. We made the mistake once in a big project to have a product vision annually. One time a year we held a big event, very festive, very big, emphasizing the vision for the company and the product. But we know that after 2 weeks, after 2 months, engagement dropped. Because things always happen and there's always gossip and new information. People lose faith, direction, confidence, everything. This is a quarterly meeting with everyone to realign everything. Out of that comes a nice board. If you do this, build a visual board. Build a visual board on a big wall because it's easy for people to understand and it's very easy to adapt. If you have your product, your teams, the big things they're going to build all on a wall, people know where they are and what they have to do. If you then have to change it, it's a matter of changing some papers, not writing 4 pages in Word or a mail and saying, I think we're going to do it that way. Visual information gets processed 60,000 times faster by your brain than text. So in planning and in vision, make it very visual. Once you are building, what you are building, you want to show off together. If you are with 20 Agile teams, one team demoing something is of no value to your product, no matter how good they are. It can be a kick-ass team. It does not help your solution forward. What you want to drive to is having 20 Agile teams demoing your solution together. Because then you know you're all moving forward. And it might go slower than that one team, yes, but at least you have progress on a solution level. If you have a company that uses velocity as a metric, for example, yes, your teams can do great and deliver everything and be fine, but if they cannot build your solution together, you don't have a solution. So you want to go for system demos. It also prevents teams from building sloppy software that cannot be scaled. I can make something work in 2 weeks, fine. But if I have to integrate that with 40 other teams and then continue to build on it, I might not be so sure anymore. So what you build together, you demo together as well. If it's not demoable, it has no value to your product. Of course, how you work together, you evaluate together as well. And if you're familiar with Scrum, we had the planning. Just now we had the demo, and now we're going to talk about retrospective. How do we do that as a big solution? It's similar to the big planning event, but now you go over it as a release train, as a big group of people. What have we done? In order to do this, one thing stands out is that you need to be able to measure things. Whatever value you have defined for your product, it needs to be measurable. Are we going in the right way? Because if you measure things, you can evaluate and say, oh, we need to try and change this process a little bit, because even though teams are working well, not well, it's not driving the train forward. It's not there yet. So that is the joint retrospective. You see what you have achieved. How is that linked to the business value that you committed to? And then you want to have a set of problem-solving techniques in place to help and agree teams drive forward. Now, improvement is never for free. I know a lot of Agile teams, a lot of companies, a lot of trains that say, yes, we define improvement actions, we write them on stickies, we put them on the wall, we put them in a Jira backlog, and then they stay there. And nothing happens with them. Because delivering new features is more important. No, it's not. It is important, yes. But if you don't do things right now, or you are in trouble now, doing the same thing again without freeing up time for improvement is going to give you the same problems again. So improvement always comes at a cost of time available to people. In the whole SAFe model, the last sprint, for example, the last 2 weeks, is dedicated to non-product work. Is dedicated to how are we going to do better in the next quarter. If you're familiar with an Agile environment, a sprint is fine. No human body can sprint forever. Something that I see a lot of companies forget. You cannot sprint indefinitely. A sprint is a burst after which you stop and you need to recover. And then you can sprint again. If you don't add the recovery time, you're going to drop dead after a couple of 100 meters in my case, but you are more fit. But you cannot keep that up. So you improve together as well. This is all supported by what we call an architectural runway. If you remember, apply systems thinking, know what happens after your release, know what happens if your product is successful. How much of a system or architecture is needed of infrastructure to keep on supporting this? I also said big upfront design don't work, which is true, which means that you just build enough support and infrastructure to make sure that your 40 teams can keep on moving. Because if you have a big product line, the worst thing that can happen is 7 teams saying, now we have to stop. Now we don't have this infrastructure, we're missing the server, we don't have licenses for this, and then your solution stops. And that's what you want to prevent. This goes into your planning as well. If you remember the roles, a system team, what they have to do, go into your planning as well. And preferably, they are one planning ahead. Because they have to build what your next wave of 40 teams are going to contribute. Do they have to build more than that? No, not necessarily. Because things change anyway. So building a year ahead, that will be overkill as well. Think 1 quarter ahead. You can have the big picture, but execution is different than having a big picture. And that's your architectural runway, making sure that you can keep on running the train. And last but not least, the biggest enabler for this, for a transformation of any kind, is you or your management as a leader. This is the biggest thing that companies have to understand. Implementing a transformation means that it is a very different mindset. We go away from big upfront design, which means that we take away a false feeling of security of what is going to be delivered and replace it by short bursts that are very flexible. But where you can measure value on a very shorter term than in 6 or 12 months. It means a change on your budgeting level. You still have the same budget, but we trade perceived certainty for shorter feedback loops. And that you need to support as an organization. I'll go back to my game studio, my previous project. If we were not able to deliver an update as a studio, that would be us as a management team not performing, not our teams. In some way, we did not see something or miss something or let them do something wrong, and that would be our responsibility. They could still go home in time. We would go to higher management and say, somehow we failed, we need to do how we can do it better. And that was not an easy conversation, and for some people very unpleasantly, but these things happen. You need to be ready to take up responsibility and accountability through leadership and leaders as well. And once you have those 5 steps, meaning you can plan, you can build together, you can improve together, you have your system and your architecture and infrastructure in place to keep on running, and you have the support from your leadership, then you can have a true safe journey. And now I'm looking at Peter for 1 minute of questions. Half a minute of questions. But thank you very much.